Hello and welcome to the Services School Stories podcast. You'll hear from veterans and partners who'll share their stories and insights about how you can use higher education to transition from the military and achieve your goals. Now let's get going.
Welcome to Services School Stories, the podcast where we help service members and veterans navigate the path from military to higher education and discover what's possible beyond the uniform. And I'm your host, Whitney Kaysen. Today, I'm joined by someone whose journey perfectly captures what the show is all about. Javier served in the U.S. Army as a Special Forces medic, a role that demanded intense focus, adaptability, and leadership under pressure. After leaving the Army, Javier decided to take on a new kind of challenge, college. With help from Services School, he earned admission to Vassar College, one of the nation's top liberal arts institutions. And then, of course, he didn't stop there. He's now pursuing his MBA at University of Chicago, Booth School of Business. In today's conversation, we'll talk about his journey from Special Forces to the Ivy League, how Services School helped open those doors, and what it's like navigating elite academic environments as a veteran. Javier, welcome to the show, and it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Whitney. I'm glad to be here with you all.
So let's start with your time in the Army. You served as a Special Forces medic, which is one of the most demanding roles. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of experience was like?
Yeah, so I think I need to talk about like what I did before that, because I was in the infantry before. I know a lot of times people hear my background and they're like, "Oh, well, of course, you were SF. Naturally, you went and did these other great things." But like I started off in the infantry in the 82nd on Fort Bragg, and I was there for about 2 years, and then I went to selection, got picked up, went through the medic course and the Special Forces qualification course. And then from there, transitioned to third group, which is also on Fort Bragg, and was there for about 3 years and got out in April of 2023. As a medic, I got to lead a lot of dynamic teams in very high tempo environments. And I got to learn a lot of critical skills, which I've translated well as I've transitioned to the civilian world.
At what point did you start thinking about life after the military? And kind of what led you to consider higher education as that next step?
So I was at my desk, and I'll never forget this because I was already like a year out from reenlisting, and I was considering my options and like what to do. Uh, there's several routes I could have gone, and I wasn't really sold on any of them. And like one of those options was getting out. But I still felt like there was something more for me to do in the military. And so as I weighed through those options, I got an email, and the Army switched the way our contracts work from being in def. So any contract that you used to sign after 12 years would keep you in until retirement at the 20-year mark. And that day at my desk, I got the email saying that they switched that point from 12 years to 10. And so since I was at 11, I couldn't sign a short-term contract. And so basically the military decided for me that my time was like over. So I scrambled, and luckily I met a rep from the Honor Foundation and Special Operations Transition Forces. And through all these conversations, I heard about service to school, and I was like, okay, so like make let me do my due diligence and explore all my options, right? For a career, jumping straight into a career post military, or going and finishing my degree. And after exploring all those things, I was like, okay, and everyone's going to be different. So like, I don't want to say that this covers but I felt that jumping straight into a career post military, I was going to be very much at the ceiling of my career. I felt like, and mentors said similar. So I decided to go to school, and through Services School's admissions fairs, learned about all the different schools and what was out there.
So you really did weigh out all of your options, and clearly it's worked out very well in your favor, and you figured out the path forward that was going to be the best fit for you. again, you said you used service school as part of that journey. How did you kind of leverage us to figure out what schools you were going to apply to?
So I'm being honest. I got on the website. I looked at all the member schools and was drawn to the shiny toys. All right, on the website. And so I made a list, and obviously, like, all the big name Ivy League schools. And at first, I was like, okay, cool. If I'm gonna shoot my shot, like, let me aim big. And I always weigh out everything. And so I took a step back after about 2 weeks, and I was like, okay, what am I missing here? Like, and I went back on that website, and I was like, okay, I don't know, like, I don't recognize any of these logos or like these school names. Like, let me look into them. And I spoke with Colleen Mallet, who was the advisor at Vassar College, and was like, okay, like, this seems like a very different vibe and like opportunity. And she just kept reaching out, reaching out, reaching out. And when I looked at the pros and cons, I was like, okay, so this really small school with only 2,000 students, like, she's reaching out a lot. Like, I'm going to be more than just a number. And these other schools, like, yeah, I could get an email response after a couple of days, but they weren't, on taking the first step. And so that really shed some perspective on the value of going to a smaller school. Um, and yeah, just using you and Sydney and everyone else at services school to kind of like bounce ideas off and like, hey, what am I missing? Is there anything else that I should be thinking of? Can you connect me with any other students at these schools so that I can get a ground truth from them? Because, like, every school looks great on the internet, but it's going to be very different once you're on campus.
So you really explored, really honed in on what kind of a campus environment that you were looking for, and that would be a really good fit for you, which is incredibly important to all of this. Again, everybody gravitates to the big and shiny, and we do love them, but there's so many other schools out there that offer so much of a unique experience for you and support. And I can't say enough about Colleen, and how amazing she is, and the incredible atmosphere that she has made at Vassar, and how supportive Vassar, as a whole, the university, the top down, there's so much incredible support from them. Um, how did you navigate going to a small liberal arts school?
So it's a very unique experience, leaving the military, but also in my situation, leaving a special forces team room and like mentality and just the way we communicate with each other was very different than what I experienced at Vassar. But one, I had experiences training young soldiers in the US Army and then in other allied partner forces. So like I've been around younger aged individuals, but then two is I understood the value of that experience and softening some rough edges that I may have had and like really expanding who I am as a person, especially coming back into the civilian world, potentially going to be leading teams of younger individuals who are going to be close in age to my students. I didn't shy away from those opportunities, even though at sometimes it was like, okay, like I'm clearly like almost as old as the professor, or like maybe potentially as old as your dad. Actually, maybe not quite that old, but it was a little like awkward, like navigating that. I really knew that if I ripped the band-aid off day one, that I would really maximize that opportunity. And I never thought about it, but in every conversation I've had with a prospective student, they always bring it up. And I just give them the same advice, just like rip it, leave the ego at the door, and just take advantage of where you're at.
For the experience and the
Right.
opportunities that it has for you. Were the students welcoming to you?
Yeah, I mean, I never had an issue at any point of like there was one time one of my friends was like we finished a study group and they were all gonna go to this party and he was like, "Hey man, I'd love to invite you, but I think it would be a little weird like if you came." Like, I don't think you want to hang out with us anyways. And I was like, dude, you're good. Like, but I never had anyone ask me anything or any negative experience being older.
Um, so I actually do want to go back to kind of your application, and a little bit of your background. Did you have any credits before going into Vassar?
Yeah. So I played college soccer before I joined the military, and I was like a junior in credit and was planning to go to law school. I was working at a law firm and didn't really love that environment and didn't think that that experience was something I wanted for my career long term. So I joined the military with about, what is that, like 80 ish, 70 to 90 credits, somewhere in there.
Okay. What how'd you navigate like choosing schools based on, that's not a small amount of credits, obviously. Uh
Yeah,
did that impact your applications at all?
it did because some schools looked at it, even though those credits were taken about 10 years prior. Some schools saw, because I was definitely over the threshold for some schools. Like, I think they were only, like, you could only transfer in if you were a sophomore. So I had too many credits for some of the bigger name schools, and they just told me flat out, like, we can't like break this rule, regardless of your situation. Um, but for everyone else, besides like a few outliers, like, it wasn't an issue. The one issue I ran into was that they were all older. And since I left the military on a condensed timeline, I wasn't able to reestablish a current transcript to prove like, hey, I've got this like track record of like, here's A plus grades for me to show that I can handle the workload. Like, that was my issue. So I was like scrambling to try and like piecemeal something together.
What did you do? Did you take any courses? How did you handle that?
So I took some online classes. I'm not gonna name the university, but I didn't. Yeah, I got grades and like they're on paper and but it wasn't a good experience at all. Sorry, one second. Let me just mute my phone. I thought it was. It's my wife.
Good, we can edit that part out.
Okay, let me just turn this off. Her sister just had a baby, so she's calling to FaceTime me about it. Big 9 pound baby, almost 10 pounds. Big chunk. Thank you. Where was I? The credits. Oh, yeah. So I took online classes at another university. Well, there wasn't a lot of benefit for me academically. It was one of those kind of like degree mill universities, but the name was good. But it I was only able to take like 3 classes online. I know some people have entirely, done their careers or like their undergrads online and then gone on to very prestigious universities for their grad stuff, but it wasn't, what I was wanting to do.
So you use the online school as a tool to kind of get what you needed out of it so that you could then, create the recent academics to then, go
hmm
on and have a successful application. How many schools did you apply to that cycle?
Uh, so I applied to roughly like 8, 8 to 10, but I don't recommend applying to that many. But I kind of threw a wide net because I knew that I didn't have the current transcript to like really be competitive. And then part of it was like, why not? Which again, I knew that it only would take one school. Like, I only had to convince one person. One, like, somebody would be like, yo, like, I know something of my nephew's a Green Beret. He's a smart guy. Like, I was just trying to leverage that. But I think it probably diluted my efforts, like, if I'm being honest.
So that's actually something important for, people that are going through the application process. They think that they can apply to 15. And, some
Or
people
more.
successfully can do that or more. Yeah. But making sure that it's a manageable number of schools so that you can dedicate good quality time to writing your essays and doing your due diligence. What And then, of course, Colleen, who I know is just no other better way to put it than a mama bear over there at Vassar. I have no doubt that she, took a vested interest in you and argued and pled your case, and obviously gave you an amazing admittance to Vassar. Applying to elite schools, of course, as we know, can be intimidating. Do you have any advice for that you would give to someone who's thinking that maybe a small liberal arts school isn't quite for them? Maybe why should they explore those other options?
Yeah, so right away, like it's going to be a very welcoming campus. The resources there, you're only competing with 2,000 student or a student body of 2,000. I'll use Vassar for example. So like the meal plan was incorporated, the health insurance was incorporated. Um, I I would text my professors like, "Hey, I'm stuck on calculus question 3," and they would respond. I would go to their office hours and I'd never have an issue. I wouldn't have to wait and to like get help. Um, there was academic resources like tutors, or they would find different programs to help you. And again, like you would just walk in and there's no line. And that's like bred into these small colleges. Whereas like I've talked to other people and they're like, I'm just a number, or like I never see my professor. I deal with a TA. All of my classes were like, I think my smallest class, there's like 3 or 4 of us. And then my biggest was 25. So, like that right away is like a major differentiator for me, at least, right? Like I'm trying to learn. I'm going there for a purpose, and like I'm learning from teachers who love to teach and then also don't have like research requirements. I mean, they're working on like a thesis or something, but they are primarily they're teaching, and they're only teaching undergraduate students. So there's not like another component that's taking their bandwidth away.
So they're not having to produce a PhD student. They're not having to produce work and research. And they weren't brought there because of their research, in that sense that like we all have been, have been exposed to someone who their research is amazing. They're brilliant, but they're not the best teachers.
Right. And like I'm taking classes right now at the University of Chicago, which is a phenomenal institution. And I would say that my teachers at Vassar were like on the same level, as, if not better teachers than like what I've experienced. Everyone here is like a genius and like super smart, but it takes a special kind of person to break things down and explain it like, hey, like this is finance, this is statistics, like this is what you're doing. And at Vassar, like I never had any issues with the quality of my professors. They're fantastic.
Well, it also sounds like they just take a very vested interest in your success in mastering the material, and being a successful student.
I
So
would say, not to cut you off, but I'd say I think I'd be because they not only care about your success in the classroom, they care about how you are like just day to day and like your well being. Like I never miss class, but like I know I had classmates that would. My teachers would like reach out to them and say like, "Hey, I missed you on Tuesday. I hope everything's all right." They would invite us over for dinners or for coffee, or just to chat. And I think that just makes the general or the overall experience so much better.
did that relationship kind of help when you started applying and looking into after graduation? So like grad school, jobs, different things like that?
Yeah, so I had professors that, I mean, they all had, their own PhDs from the who's who in the zoo of schools. And I would talk to them like, oh, so like I'm thinking of applying to these schools. And they would, give me some insight or recommendations or people to like connect with. And so like on that aspect, because I had that relationship with them prior to it, it was a very easy transition to just, by the way, like I'm applying to Duke, like, or I'm doing this. And like, they would be like, oh my God, like I love Duke basketball. And then you just start talking and then like, there's like a benefit that would come from it. And they would like help you read your resume or like if I had a GRE question, I'd go talk to my professor and I was like, hey, like, how do I break this down? Like, I'm missing this one component. And because they were such good professors, they could explain it quickly, like better than like a chat GPT could help me out with.
Is amazing, and definitely not the type of access that you would get to every professor at every school that's out there. So it sounds like you really made the absolute most of your experience. At what point did you start thinking about what would come next? About even pursuing an MBA? Like, at what point did you start thinking about that?
So I probably started thinking about MBA programs before I really started thinking about undergrad, because I was like, okay, so because I had my mentor and I talked, and again, going back to like if you transition straight to a job post military, you're going to be coming in kind of like close to your ceiling without your undergrad. And so like, if you go get your undergrad, like these are the types of jobs that you could get and then grow in more of a leadership role after you get your MBA. So I I'm 37 now again. So like anyone listening, like thinking like, oh, I'm too old to do this. Like, no, like, you're not. Uh, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm on the older end of the spectrum. Like I like finish my undergrad and transition straight into business school, and like what business school would I want to go to? And then I was like, okay, like let me research. Like again, I was very thorough in my just like modeling of my decision. And I said, okay, well, where do these applicants or current students, like where do they go to school? And like, okay, cool. Now let me cross-reference that with like the service of school link. And then, okay, so there was like a good majority that came from this type of school. And then I was like, okay, so I'm on the right track with like my list of 10, but like really it was like a list of like maybe 3 or 4 that I was serious about, or like, my wish list, right? And so I kind of identified the business school I wanted to go to, or like, the top 5. And then from there, kind of like work backwards and like regress to identify what schools I want to go to and like what benefits, or which school would give me the best benefit to allow me to like move forward after graduating.
That is incredibly important to this process. I do a lot of backwards planning when I talk to service members. I actually start going, okay, what's your end goal? If it's law school, if it's business school, if
Yeah.
it's, what is the end goal? And then, of course, what is the backwards plan that we need to get to even figure out how we can meet in the middle, and get them to that dream school. So incredibly valuable. And I really hope that people that are listening take that into consideration when they're starting to do their own homework into this.
Uh,
So, oh, go ahead.
I will say that another, because I've experienced this as well with other people or classmates, that backwards planning also like should be considered when you're choosing your major. Like you can't be like, oh, I want to go into, I don't know, like computer science, but my major is going to be in origami or whatever, right? Like a very like, I'm trying to think of zoology or something like that's like not connected in any way. Like you have to like your plan has to make sense too. And also because like you're going to be talking with recruiters or like admissions at these schools, and like they want to know that like, okay, your story makes sense. Like how can we help you accomplish your goal? And if you're just like, oh, I studied anthropology, for example, starts with an A. So anthropology, but I want to go into consulting or I want to go into investment banking. Well, like your decision making is kind of like being questioned right off the bat. And so I think people need to be very smart, and like you don't have to get married to that one major initially, but like have a good plan. Like, does this make sense? Does this allow me to get to where I want to be?
Absolutely. That also goes into, again, telling your story of, like, where you've been, where you are, and where you're going is incredibly vital to that. And the school needs to see where they fit into that,
Hmm.
and how that will play out, for them as well. Um, so after graduating Vassar, you're now at Chicago Booth. What drew you to this in particular MBA program?
So it was the most like you have to choose your own route. And so other schools, they have a very structured either entire first year or like entire, first semester. And I didn't really love that. I wanted to kind of like explore a little bit more. I had my own plan. And so like I'm like pursuing entrepreneurship through acquisition, which requires a lot of general knowledge, but the I wanted to come to Booth because one, it's one of the top schools in the ETA ecosystem, but also again, like I was backwards planning. I to get this internship in the summer, like what do I need to do? And if I Booth allows me to take whatever classes I want initially, like first day. So like that knowledge can like help me in my internship and then hopefully allow me to transition that internship into a full-time offer. Um, it just, and then every conversation I have with vets here, it's one of the most vet friendly universities. Is everything okay? You guys are frozen. Okay. All right. It's just Whitney's screen.
It's me. Can you guys see me now?
Yeah, but you're like coming across like you're staticky.
Computer just started. Let me close some things down. I'm so sorry, Amanda. Going on, or why my computer was beeping at me.
Yeah, it's getting better.
Okay, give me a second. I don't know what's happening. Closing everything. So sorry, guys, because that was a really great point, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should be a little bit more concise. I wasn't, I don't think I was prepared as much as I should have been.
It's okay. Sorry. Let me get back to my where I was in my notes as well.
I'll just start back up with why Booth.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Amanda, I'm so sorry. No clue what the glitch was. All right. If you want, do you want me to re-ask the question so that it feels like a little bit more of a natural flow? All right, let's do that. So after graduating from Vassar, you have now set your sights on Chicago Booth and you're in attendance. What drew you to their MBA program?
So again, I researched a lot of schools, and what I found was that some schools in their curriculum are very structured, and either that entire first year can be already set in stone as like what classes you're taking, or maybe there's like a hybrid where there's like the first semester of them are already dictated for you. And Booth has the most flexibility and open curriculum out of all the universities. So there's really only one required class, which is like the orientation. And so again, like I wanted to ensure that I could land an internship. And so having that flexibility and freedom to choose my classes would allow me to strengthen my chances of landing an internship and being prepared to be successful once I arrived there for the summer. And then the other aspect is like I really want to pursue entrepreneurship through acquisition. And Chicago Booth has, through the Polsky Center, has a great ecosystem where there's other like classmates who are interested in pursuing the same thing. And then so investors come, they speak with us, we do lunch and learns. And that environment was something that I felt I should. There's not every school is like that. Not every school has the resources or the investors willing to come onto campus to meet and potentially hire their students. And so again, like I wanted to put myself in the environment that I could potentially leverage and maximize the opportunity to help me reach my goals.
So everything about it was strategic. It wasn't just about chasing a name in this case. Um, so let's go back a little bit. Could you walk us through the application process? What strategies or supports kind of helped you through it?
So uh, I think that it's a very different monster applying to business school. Even comparing it to other like law schools or other professional degrees, it's a little bit different. So what I did is again signed up for a services school. I had a mentor. He helped me a lot with my resume. So I guess let me take a step back. So like there's a resume that you submit. Each school has essays, basically tell us about who you are, your goals, short-term, long-term goals, and like how do we fit in? How are you going to maximize our resources to help enable your goals. Um, and so you really have to network and like get to know the students at each school because they are all very different. And throughout the process, you might, you start with a list and you speak with people at one school and you're like, I'm not quite that granola, or I don't want to live in that city, or like that's the fifth person that said that career services isn't good or whatever. And so like we whittle that down. But with my mentor, um, he connected me with a bunch of vets at all the schools I was interested in. And there was some schools that like from those conversations I crossed off. Um, so there's like the resume, the networking, and then the third and most critical part is your GRE or like GMAT. So it's a test that you take. The GMAT is business school specific, and then the GRE can be applied to a wide range of graduate schools. So kind of like figure out which one suits your strengths best, and then take it a couple of times. Like I studied for about 4 months. Could never really crack like the number I wanted. And I mean, I got a good score, but I was like shooting high and I was like, okay, well, I don't think I'm going to get that. Um, so let's see, I think the whole process, I started in about May of 2024, and then I applied round two in like January of 2025. Um, so there's a lot, right? There's like, basically, you want to get your test score done so that then you're not having to worry about that. Then you network, create your list, start writing your essays based off of the feedback that you have from those conversations. And then throughout that process, you're having to revise and refine your resume because there's a process to that. And like my wife hates how much time I've spent on it for like 550 words, but I feel pretty confident that I've got it in a good spot right now. Um, but that's a monster. So like each phase of applying to business school is like it takes a lot of time. You can apply within a week, but you're not gonna be anywhere near as prepared.
So, again, that backwards planning of making sure that you are thinking about this in advance, preparing for it, making a plan, creating a timeline, and of course, working with organizations like ours, Services School, because that mentorship piece is incredibly vital. Again, to figuring out even a school that's the right fit for you. So now that you're in our program, what surprised you most about the experience, either academically or even personally?
I mean, academically, I knew what I was getting into, right? Booth is known to be the most rigorous and analytical business school program. There might be some exceptions or like, parties that were slightly stung by that comment, but I think that's how it's usually regarded. But I think the social aspect and like the time management aspect of it is it's overwhelming. So like I was on my calendar last night and going through all the events that are happening at Booth this week, and there's like 30 or 40 per day. And so you really have to like whittle down and like almost put blinders on, like, hey, like these are my priorities and this is what I'm gonna stick to. I have friends that are recruiting for different things and like on different timelines. So dealing with like the FOMO of like, okay, like, well, they already started. Am I behind now? Or like, just understanding that you're running your own race and like you have to like stay true to your goal and your intention. Like that's been a struggle and like managing the time to like, okay, I want to get to know these people. I want to learn from these events, but there's like a cool tech event today. Like, but that's not my priority. Like, I'm not going to go do that. And like really just balancing that has been harder than I thought, for sure.
So, can you tell us a little bit, like, what's the veteran community like at Booth, and kind of do you guys get to support each other?
Yeah. So I went to an event this summer and I met another Green Beret at Booth. And so like right away, like it was like, okay, cool. Like I found somebody like me, like let's hang out. And then it was funny because we were at this big museum in Indianapolis and slowly, and like I don't think him and I look very much like we were in the military, let alone like what people expect a Green Beret to look like. And then like another vet came, and then like three, then four, then we had like a group of like nine vets. I think that's regardless of where you go to school for like a business school, like the vet community is going to be the strongest community that you're a part of. And it's great because there's people doing investment banking or wealth management or consulting or some, corporate or a leadership development program. And so you get to hear their stories and what they're going through. And okay, cool. Like I never thought about that. Like, let me look into that. And like that knowledge transfer is really big. At Booth, we get together about, I think like once a week or so. I have lunch with my classmates or my friends who all we have like a GB Slack channel that we have, or not Slack, Signal channel. And so we're like, hey, like this is going on today. Like, just, keeping you in the loop. But I think that like, yeah, it's like anywhere else, like undergrad or grad school, like the military community on campus is going to be incredibly supportive and helpful in your search.
Incredibly important to that transition to that feeling, ho- not at home, but that feeling of belonging that you are, you're meant to be there. And support is incredibly important whenever it comes to just persevering through challenging elite programs. Um, so looking back at your journey from Special Forces to Vassar to Chicago, what stands out as the most important lesson that you've learned about yourself?
I think when I left the military, I was very much like, okay, I'm done. Like this chapter of my life is like in the past. And I quickly realized like, okay, I can't just forget everything that helped make me successful in the military because I'm starting this new phase. And so just remembering, because no matter what school you go to, like that first semester when you're sitting in like a calculus or a quant heavy science class, you're going to be like, oh my God, what am I doing? And you're going to have to revert back to the discipline that the military gave you and really buckle down and like understand that, okay, I don't know how to do this, but yet, like, I don't know how to do this yet. And if I study and I go to like reach out to my professors, like I'll be successful just the same way you were when you're in the military. Like, oh, my PT sucks, like my run sucks, or I can't lift. Well, then you would go to the gym and work out. And I think that's part of like something that helped me like remain confident throughout my journey. Because there's definitely points where I was like, whew, I don't know if I'm gonna make this, or maybe did I mess up? But like just really focusing on those like small attainable goals on a daily basis really has helped me remain confident and like continue to move forward.
Perspective also is really good about, the type of hurdle and how it's temporary and how you can overcome it because you've overcome so many other things, so many other challenges and obstacles that have been put behind, ahead of you. For many of our listeners who are veterans and are considering going into academia, which can be uncharted territory for them, what have you learned about how veterans can add value to these types of programs?
Yeah. So one, like you have to remember these schools are recruiting. They put it on their websites like 10% military community. Like there's a reason why they want you on campus. And I was in emergence of the modern Middle East, a history class at Vassar, my first semester. So the fall of 2023. Well, I was in class when the attacks on Israel occurred, and I was still like trying to like feel my way out through like what I'm bringing, how am I going to contribute in class. And so we spent the entire class just talking about what was going on, and like everyone had shared their their thoughts and opinions. And so I weighed in, and you have to remember, like, these kids weren't alive when 9/11 happened. And so, like, I had to, like, I shared my experience where I was when the towers were hit and what happened, how the country rallied around that, and all the second and third order of effects. And it really, like, resonated with the students. Like, they came out to me, they talked to me after class, or they emailed me like, "Hey, I'm so glad that you were here with me in class because I would have never thought of it like this, or I don't have that experience, and so, like, you're the only person that I've ever been around with a different or, like, that military perspective." And so, like, you bring that to class, and, like, you have to be willing to share that because it also helps you, right? And, like, grow and become more confident as a student, and gets you involved with, like, everything on campus.
Love everything that you just said. Um, Part of what we do is, we are diversifying these campuses with service members who bring incredibly unique experiences. And what an incredibly unique one that you brought to that classroom on that day. Many other classrooms across the country are looking for and wanting service members to be there to bring those unique perspectives and to have that discourse. Um, so to close, let's kind of speak directly to the veterans that are listening, those who might be where you were a few years ago, wondering if they have what it takes to get into a place like Vassar or Booth or another top tier school. What would you tell them?
I would say that, look at the track record, look at the historical data. People get into Princeton, they get into Harvard, they get into University of Chicago every year. Like, they're no different than you. They weren't all, soft in the Army. They weren't all Navy SEALs. They weren't all pilots. They weren't all submariners. Like, they come from every rank and file and MOS or rate or whatever military opportunities exist. Like, they come from everywhere. So just remember that, like, you can do it. Um, it's a grind, but, like, if you're committed to the process, like, you're gonna end up at the right school for you, and all of the hard work and networking and applications, like, they can be life-changing, and it's definitely worth it. Like, going to a school, any of the schools on the vet link, they it's just life-changing. Like, the social mobility that they provide, the education, the experience, it's something that you should definitely, like, strive for and take advantage of. Like, one of the craziest stats that I heard, which still blows my mind, is that only 10% of eligible veterans, GI Bill benefit eligible veterans, use it. So, like, that's crazy. Like, I got to go to school for free at schools that people pay $500,000 to go to, and it's like, what? Like, how? Like, it's crazy. So, like, take advantage of it. It's an amazing, life-changing opportunity.
And it's organizations like ours, Service to School. We help you to maximize your experience, whether you're using the GI Bill or you're maybe potentially going on full grants and scholarships. We want you to go to the school that's the best fit, that's going to get you where you want to go ultimately, to your end goal, whether it be to business school or to that job. Thank you, Javier, for your story. It is a perfect example of what happens when preparation meets opportunity, and when veterans believe in the value of their own experience. You've shown that service, discipline, and intellectual curiosity can open doors anywhere. For our listeners, if you're a veteran thinking about applying to college or graduate school, take inspiration from Javier's journey. Whether it's Vassar, Booth, or another amazing dream school, remember that your service and your story matter, and that there are programs like ours that are out there ready to help you make it happen. Javier, thank you for joining us today, and best of luck as you continue your MBA journey. And that's it for our episode of Service to School Stories. I'm Whitney Kaysen. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
That's all we have for this episode. Join us next week, same time, same place, where we share more Service to School stories. Service to School Stories is hosted by Sydney Mathis, Chief Program Officer, and Alec Emmert, Service to School CEO. Our podcast is produced and edited by our Director of Communication, Amanda Tobias. Services School is a 501c3 nonprofit providing free college admission support to transitioning service members and veterans. Join us next week and follow us for more on your favorite social media platforms.